Well, Romy is one of the hostages being held by Hamas. The 24-year-old was trying to escape from the Nova Music Festival in a car when she was kidnapped and taken hostage by Hamas on October 7th, 2023. Her family was in contact with her during those initial moments of the attack, and according to her family, she was shot in the arm. We are joined live once again this morning by Romy's cousin, Toronto resident Maureen Leshman, to talk more about the developments in the Middle East recently. Maureen, appreciate your time this morning. What is your initial sort of response and reaction, and the family's response and reaction to this news of the ceasefire and potential hostage return, which could start as early as Sunday?
So we are dealing with a storm of emotions all at once. We are anxious, we are hopeful, we are terrified. Of course, we're impatient. We're glued to our phones waiting for updates. I find myself between this cautious hopefulness and this gnawing unease. The thought of Romy and the hostages finally coming home is just, it's incredible. But at the same time, I'm just filled with fear, fear that ultimately we're placing trust with those who have proven their cruelty.
What is the last update you had about Romy, her condition, how she is?
Just before December, Romy's mom, Mayrav, had informed me that Romy is alive. But she's not in good condition. Romy was shot in the arm on October 7th, and she has not received proper medical attention. And, from the state of the released and rescued hostages, we know the condition that they were treated. So every single second is too long.
It must be agonizing, Maureen. And I also understand the apprehension and concerns you have around the state of Romy and any other hostages released, about how they're going to come back after 15 months of being held captive by Hamas.
I think it's fair to say that that we can't forget that this is going to be a very, very long and challenging road. The hostages have endured unimaginable trauma, and their healing is going to demand a lot. It's going to require a profound commitment to care. These hostages have been trapped in this relentless state of, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn for so long that to some of them, maybe even the idea of truly living feels alien. Are you okay and at peace with the deal? In terms of what I heard, a lot of reaction yesterday, particularly from the Israeli or Jewish side, was the fact that on the one side you've got hostages who were kidnapped and taken against their will, being released and sort of effectively traded for prisoners who were in some cases terrorists, undertaking the attacks on Israel. How do you feel about that part of this sort of ceasefire agreement so far? So this isn't a hostage swap, right? Like you said, there's about 1,000 criminals from Israeli prisons. From my understanding, almost 200 of them were sentenced to over 15 years for some extremely violent crimes in exchange for the release of 33 hostages, some of which will not be alive. But the reality is, and while no country should ever have to make such a heartbreaking decision under the shadow of violence, this is the reality we face. This is the reality that Israel is facing. And I do think that this is a sign that Israel will do everything in its power to try to get their kidnapped citizens back, because that is the value that we place on human life. So I ask anybody, what would you do? What would you do if this was your daughter or your son or your grandparent or your cousin? What would you do to get them back?
Yeah, these are difficult decisions and difficult days ahead. Okay, Maureen Leshman, always appreciate the time. We wish you the best, and we'll hope to hear some good news, hopefully in the coming days. Thanks for the time again this morning.